This is the Team Church Podcast with Kevin Gerald, where we exist to move church forward and have the conversations that every team needs to be having.
Team Church, what's up? Welcome back to the Team Church Podcast with Kevin Gerald. My name is Brandon Stewart, and I'm going to be your host today. We have designed this space to have the conversations that your team needs to have right now, today, and we hope that today's conversation will tee it up for you to circle up with your team and unpack what we're going to talk about today. We believe it'll help you in this season of church life to get better, to move forward. That's what we're here for at Team Church, is to move church forward. I'm back today with Coach K, Pastor Kevin. So glad to be back in this space talking today.
I just wanted to tell you, you have that intro down.
I've done it a couple times.
You have that down now.
I've done it a couple times.
But it's so, we want to communicate like why we're here, and that we're actually here to start a conversation.
Right.
And we don't want to try to come across like we've got, 5 great answers. We want to create and stimulate conversation. So
well, and I know these episodes get listened to for a long time after this, but it's summer right now. We're kind of in summer school, and that's what we're going to do today. PK, is you're going to take us to school a little bit. Like, I got my notes out, and I hope you get your notes out, get something to write with today, because we want to go to school. We want to talk about getting better today.
Yeah, we want to recap a little bit. Like, we started with this topic called leading forward for the summer. And the idea is that, hey, it's time to move things forward. Right. No matter what stage you're at, figure it out, assess it, evaluate it, which is what we talked about last month. Right. We talked about your non-negotiable reality, where you are right now, like coming to terms with that, your mindset, your team, and what are you going to do about it? And so today we're going to talk about when individual members of the team get better, teams get better. When individual members of the team get better, teams get better. And I want to just pause long enough. I want it to sink in that there is no way for a team to get better unless individual members of the team get better. Let's use baseball. It's summertime. Let's say you got 9 guys on a team, and let's just say none of them improve. None of them get better. The team's not going to get any better. But if they're all working the game and they're all getting better, then the whole team benefits from the individual getting better.
You're almost reminding me of this idea of the bystander effect. That when there's a group around, you can almost like remove yourself from the responsibility and say, someone else will handle it, right? And that's a little bit of what we're talking about today.
Yep.
Don't be a bystander on your team.
And you know what? No one would intentionally, nobody watching today or listening today who is serving on a church team would intentionally hold their team back. So it's not something we do intentionally, but unintentionally. If we're not careful, we will hold our team back by getting stuck where we are personally as an individual. So it's so important that everybody on the team keeps on every day getting up to say, how can I be better at what I do?
I want to encourage everyone who's watching this today or listening to this today, if you're in a place to do so, why don't you get out a note on your phone, get out a piece of paper, it'd be even better. Get into a space where you can consider this. PK, I know you have a couple things you're going to walk us through today. Yep. And I think for all of us, if we want to bring our best game, to the team, this is an opportunity for us to do some assessment today.
So the first thing we're going to talk about is your attitude towards your work. Improving your attitude toward your work. I just hope that whatever role you have, that you consider it a privilege, that you consider it a blessing to be part of the mission of God's church. And I think that gets lost in all of us from time to time. I think we all have seasons and times, even days. I mean, you can start a morning off well, and then somewhere during that day, your attitude can get off. And so we all know what that's about or what that's like. But my greatest concern is not really that, that attitude that gets a little bit sideways for a few hours or even a couple days. My concern is that it's easy to get that appreciation that you had, that joy that you had, that attitude of gratitude that you had, to get lost, somewhere, for that to get lost somewhere in your life, and to settle into a place to where you forget how blessed you are to be doing what you're doing. And so reviving that, getting that back up again, can be a huge factor to your team. I mean, what if your team right now were depending on you to have the mojo for the team? Like, if you just think in your mind, I'm talking about even those of you who are on a church staff, and let's say there's 10 people on your staff, or there's 30 people on your staff that you're around almost daily. What if you were the one setting the morale for the team? How would they be doing? And just ask yourself that. So, but don't underestimate that if you come in tomorrow with a better attitude than you've had in a while, don't underestimate how that can be infectious, how that can impact other people on your team.
So I'm going to be honest for just a minute and speak up maybe on behalf of the person listening or watching today who would be honest and say that even in the last 12 months, there's probably been moments where we all struggled with this, struggled to refire. The last 12 months had a way of taking us to that place where we all needed to refire it. I know I was there. I'm sure people listening were there. My question for you, have you been there at seasons in ministry where you had to refire the right attitude in you, and what did you do?
On a regular basis, and when I say regular, I mean I feel like that through self-discipline, I don't dip as far or as low as maybe I would have before the disciplines kicked in. But I would say that in the past year, I had some really tough days. I had some weeks where I really struggled with my sense of, going forward, and my sense of leading forward, and my usual ambition to do so. I struggled with things that, that I hadn't struggled with in a long time, or maybe even ever. So I'm not far removed from that, is my point. I'm not far removed from the need. And like I said last month, our last podcast, I think recognizing is that's your starting point. So in Mind Monsters, that's the beginning for renewing your mind. We give 4 ways you renew your mind. And the first thing is you got to recognize the mind monster. And so I would just say in your attitude, you got to recognize when your attitude's off. And if you can recognize it, then you are on your way, that you've taken the first step. The second thing that I want to talk about, Brandon, is, and this has to do again with getting better so your team can get better, is your personal productivity. And I just felt like this was really fitting, again, with a year where people wore sweatpants and slippers.
Absolutely.
For days.
Guilty.
And there were so many things we couldn't do that we were used to doing, that we got into a mindset like, well, I can't do anything about that. I can't. And then we joke about it, but, COVID became an excuse for everything we didn't want to do or people didn't want to do. And so it would serve us well right now to say, hey, my personal productivity may not have been what I wanted it to be, but now I'm going to raise my game. And to realize that you're not just doing that for yourself, you're doing it for your team. You're doing it for the people around you, because when your personal productivity increases, the productivity of the team goes up. It goes forward.
I know you talk a lot about competency. And I think that's what we're wanting to do in this conversation, is just put the bullseye on all of us, personally.
Right.
To take ownership of growing some areas. And one of those is your personal competency.
Right.
In the skills you need to do your work, do your job.
Right. Yeah. And that's not an easy thing for admission, and in other words, to admit. And oftentimes it's not an easy thing to see on our own. So we have to get outside of ourselves, and we have to maybe invite other people to help us to analyze, like, hey, where is it that I'm stuck? Where is it that maybe I can get better, and be more productive? And specifically in the area of productivity, I would say knowledge is really important, because there are people, I often say this, it's not the weight, it's how you carry it. So you have to ask yourself, when you feel like, wow, I'm maxed out. Well, are you really maxed out? Would somebody else be maxed out? Is there something they know that you don't know that helps them carry more weight within a given amount of time and keeps them productive? So you know, that, and when it comes to competence, just having knowledge, how to be more competent, and skill, things like time management, the speed with which you lead, I call it. That process of continuing to ask yourself, how can I be more productive in the same 24-hour day? How am I more productive as a leader on my team? And there's some great answers, is the point. That when you really ask yourself about productivity, how am I more competent as a leader, there's some great answers waiting for you.
So, not to get us over into other conversations that I know we'll have at some point in this space, but I mean, we're all human, finite. We can only do so much, but there's no doubt that part of a leader's, you growing their capacity is working through other people. Mm-hmm. You know, that part of the way that we increase in this area is we don't just do it alone. Yep. And we don't sabotage the team by just doing it alone.
Right. And so actually, if I just want to move on to the next point, because the question is literally you're asking has to do with the third point here. And if your team is going to get better, one of the ways you can help your team get better is get better at your recruitment and training skills. Don't try to do it alone. And whatever you're doing, ask yourself, what is it that I'm doing that someone else can do? And I think a lot of times we run past that, and everybody's guilty of it. But in this season, I would say don't do delegate. Don't do delegate. Like and you know, one of the main reasons, Brandon, that people don't delegate and they do is because for them, it seems like it's easier and saves time by doing it myself. Right? It makes sense. Mm-hmm. But here's the deal. That's real short-term thinking. Yes. And the idea with getting your team better is becoming more competent and being able to actually get more done, not just you, but through you. So the day you can actually be accomplishing things that you're not actually doing, but you're accomplishing it through people who are, now you're accelerating and multiplying your value as a team member, and you're multiplying what your team is actually accomplishing. So again, it's deceptive to not buy into the power of sharing what you do and training other people to do it. Short term, yes, it takes more of your energy. It takes more of your time. You got to bring somebody along. But long term, you began to actually be doing more in the big picture of things. And I can tell you as a boss, as a leader of a team and a staff, and we have a great team. I love our staff. But this is the one thing that I just wish we could all continue to do more and more skillfully, is I wish that we could understand, don't do delegate.
So I know there's got to be a young leader listening today who they want to hit it out of the park for their pastor. Like they want to be the one to hit the grand slam, right? They want to be the one to put the points on the board. But talk to us from a pastor's perspective, because I've heard you and so many pastors say, man, what would put the points on the board for me would be if that leader wouldn't just do it all themselves, but would actually build a team of people who could do that. I think the problem there is you don't always get the glory If you build a team and others start putting points, your team gets the glory. Maybe just talk to that leader who's struggling. They want to hit it out of the park for their pastor. Just remind them what actually goes on in the mind of a pastor when it comes to team building.
Yeah, I mean, let's say I approach a graphic designer on our staff, and they go, you want that? I'm so busy. I got this going. I got 10 things going. The lid is now there. Right. Well, who's going to do something about that? Hopefully they are. Hopefully the moment they have to say, I don't have the capacity to do that, is the moment they realize I help my pastor, I help my team, I help our church move forward whenever my capacity increases. Well, how does my capacity increase? I began to bring people close to me, either train them to do what I'm doing in a specific area, or they may already be trained and sitting in the church. Graphic designers in the church, can I get them on my team, get them on my list, get them on my speed dial? Because the moment you do, what you're doing is you're beginning to lead a team of graphic designers instead of just being the one graphic designer. And the value of that to a pastor, I promise you, I think a lot of people think, well, then, oh my goodness, he won't need me anymore. No, he has just located somebody who actually is not just a doer, but a delegator. And a delegator and a person who delegates well. I'm not just talking about shoving things off their plate. I'm talking about a really good delegating leader is so much more valuable than a doer.
And I think in my own leadership journey, the place that I had to come to was I had to love winning through other people rather than winning just by myself. Right. And that's a journey I think that every younger aspiring leader has to go on. Yep. I actually love to win through other people now rather than being the one that has to put the points on the board. Okay, so let me ask you this in terms of tips on recruiting, because I know there are times where we want to approach people with kind of a little request, and then there's times where I've approached people asking for the farm, from them. What gets better results out of people when we finally get up the thinking to go and ask them to be a part of our team, do more in my world? What actually motivates people to be a part of our team?
I'll tell you first what doesn't motivate people. What doesn't motivate people is the expression of, I need help. Can you please help me? Like, we have so much to do, and yes, I can't do it. Yes. And that doesn't motivate people.
Need is a 4-letter word.
Yeah.
Like, don't use it.
It is. Don't use the word need. So working from the understanding of that, now think about what does motivate people is value. Like when people understand that you're calling me to something significant, you're calling me to something high, you're inviting me into something that really matters, a way that I actually not just needed, I'm actually being helpful. I'm putting points on the board.
Right.
Like now you're in a space where people, when you're talking that language, that's how you recruit people. That's how you bring people in. Now I want to say something, Brandon, because even as I said that, something in my mind went, there's somebody out there today who's watching or listening to us that is confused between being a persuader and a manipulator. And I want to say to you today, there is a huge difference in manipulation and persuasiveness. And when I say huge difference, I understand that there's a thin line you can cross over, but there's a totally different spirit. There's a whole totally different mindset. There's a totally different attitude. It's coming from a completely different place when you are persuading someone towards something that has value for them. You're not being selfish about it. You're not trying to twist their arm for a selfish reason. You're trying to persuade them towards something that you know in your heart is going to add value to their life, They're adding value to the church. They're adding value to the kingdom of God, but they're going to thank you later. And when you really know that, that's what persuasiveness is all about. So I would just say you got to get that right, and you got to sort it out and not be afraid to lean into people and have conversation with people and call people to something in terms of, their talent, their ability, the use of their time that has significance in it.
So, before we move on to the next point, I guess let's just acknowledge the obvious. This is a very unique climate right now for asking big of people. I mean, we're just dealing with a very unique volunteer landscape, leadership landscape. But if I'm hearing you right, you're saying ask big anyway. Like go there with people.
Absolutely. And I would say get ready and be ready to not win everyone over. Right. I think that every pastor, I remember when I first started giving invitations for salvation, I think this is a fair example. A lot of pastors are petrified, and some that are watching today don't give invitations every week because of the rejection involved. I don't know if anybody will raise their hand. I don't know if anybody will actually get saved today. I know how many are in our church. And I just want to say that I started giving salvation invites and prayers when our church was small. And when I thought I could look across the room and actually know if anybody was actually a visitor today. It takes courage to step out with the belief in your heart that I'm developing a habit that is worth the one next week or the three next month. The no hands today is maybe my opportunity to just get better at what I'm doing so that I'm actually bringing in more of a harvest as time goes on. I think that's exactly what's happened to me, is that we see people who are raising their hands every week at our church or online or however it might be. And I'm so thankful for the day that I wasn't afraid to ask. And by the way, my ask is not, I hope you will. It's not like, I know you may not be feeling like it today or that. No. It's like, you know what? God cares about you. God has a plan for your life. And God wants the best for you. He loves you. It's that positive reality that I know in my heart that I can persuade a person to make a real decision today, to pray this prayer and to have a new beginning in their life, that same person's life is beginning right now in a new direction. And they will thank you later. Like they will have gratitude later. And I know that people fall off the boat. I know people, don't always, it's not a magic wand. But I think my point is that once a person makes a decision in the right direction and you were part of that, you start to forget the no's. You start to forget the rejection. You don't worry about that. You just realize, and today I can boldly talk about joining a team, being part of a team, being persuasive with people to get on a team. Because in this room right now where we're filming today, I'm surrounded by people whose life has been totally changed, right, and their children's life is being totally changed because they made a decision to be part of the church. And I don't just mean attending. I'm talking about being on the team.
You've spoken really well, I guess, to the moment that a lot of us are probably in, that it feels tough, in some ways, and we're going to hear some no's, but we shouldn't back up anyways, that we should keep going. This is actually a way we add value to the team. The team gets better when we get better in this area. It adds value to the overall team whenever, and I want to go over, the three things really quick. Is that the first one is your attitude toward your work gets better. You're grateful, you're thankful. The second one is your personal productivity starts to increase. And number three, your recruitment and training. We didn't touch on the training part, but ask yourself before you recruit, what do I do when they say yes? Really? Yeah. Like ask yourself, what's next? Yep. In other words, what am I inviting them to? Great. Am I ready to actually sit down with them one-on-one or have a class every month?
an orientation, we call it, for our team. I'm not talking about growth track. I'm talking about, are you ready for the yeses? Mm-hmm. And your best people don't want you to waste their time.
Right. Please don't do that. Okay, take us to number 4.
Number 4 is your communication skills. Some of that was a part of what I actually just talked about, so we don't have to spend a lot of time on it. But I would just say coming to terms with the idea that as a leader, we're always wanting to improve our communication. No matter who you are, what level you're at in the organization, communication being improved always raises the level of the team. Whether it's within your team, whether it's within the context of how you communicate with your peers and the people around you. So whether it's horizontal or whether it's lateral, whether it's up or whether it's down in terms of a flow chart, communicate. And then am I good at recruiting? And then can I lead a meeting and actually lead it effectively? Can I invite people to a team and then have a good team meeting every Sunday before service or whatever it might be? Or are they my buddies in the room? And so I kind of slouch and I don't really take on leadership. I would say start taking on the role of speaking and talking and communicating like a leader.
What do you think it says about a leader who either doesn't prepare for a meeting, flubs the meeting, communication is poor? What do you think the effect is on the people that are?
Oh, the morale is down. The morale is not high. Like it's not. People really want to follow a leader who knows where they're going.
How do you prepare to communicate? Because I've been in your airspace for a number of years now. I know you guard Saturday nights, and I know. Take us to how you actually prepare to get ready to communicate in the spaces that you do.
Well, obviously, every weekend with the congregation, there's a lot of hours. People ask me that, and I think I probably log a minimum of 15 hours most weeks in message preparation for the weekend. And that's from the moment I get an idea and grab my phone and just put down an idea. I'm including everything in that, but it's a lot of preparation, and then it's switching it around, moving it around, getting the flow right. I kind of go through a little process. This is probably not the podcast for that, but I go through a little podcast with my message prep. But then also, I think anytime I address our team or talk to our team, I prepare in advance. I prepare an agenda for my lead team meetings. I do that. I prepare the agenda, and they contribute to it. I open it up on a Google Doc where they can add a request to talk about certain things. But my point is, don't go into meetings not prepared. That's a real insult to people. And so even if your team is 3 people, 5 people, if you're the lead person on the team, please don't be too casual about it. That's what I meant a while ago about friendship. Is a lot of times smaller churches or churches who are trying to elevate and become a little bit more sophisticated in their approach. It's up to the team member to do that, like the team leader to do that, to say, hey, I know we've been real casual about this, but next week we're actually going to have a 10-minute huddle. And here's what we're going to do with the 10-minute huddle. We're going to do it right after service. And we're going to go over, we're going to recap, we're going to talk about, and then we're going to set the course for the next week. Get in that space that only a leader can get in. And when you do, people will respect you for it. And they will be grateful, especially the new people who enter in on a team. One of the groups that I meet with every month is called the Pastors Council, and these are the individuals in our church that help me with the business of our church. And that's an example. Time after time, I've invited someone into that group, and without exception, Brandon. I've had corporate leaders, I've had business owners, I've had regular people, I've had school teachers, whatever it might be. But without exception, when new people come on board and they serve a year, they serve 2 years, the comments I get back consistently are, wow, I'm just blown away by the business side of our church. And I'm so grateful. And the reason for that is we go in with information prepared, reports prepared. We start off with some prayer, and then we go right into the agenda for the day. The agenda is lined out. We don't waste any of their time. I tell them you're going to be out of here by a certain time so you can go to work. Many people are headed toward work. So anyway, my point is that the people who are busy are the people who get things done. And you don't want to build a team on people that don't have nothing else to do. You want to attract people who actually are busy people.
Yes.
But those people need you to not waste their time. They need you as a leader to be a leader and to have a plan, have an agenda for the meeting.
Something I've seen leaders overcome with great communication is being intimidated. And what I mean by that is I've heard leaders over the course of time say, I'm trying to lead people who are older than me, or I'm trying to lead people who are more experienced than me. I'm trying to, maybe you're new, maybe you're 21 years old, starting out in ministry, whatever the case may be. This is actually something you can do that actually gets you over the hump of feeling that intimidation.
Absolutely.
In some of those circles.
And this collaboration with others on your team that's the last thing we were going to talk about. When you improve your collaboration with others on your team, it also lifts the level of your whole team. Now, when I say that in answer to what you just said, or response to what you just said, what I'm referring to actually is that I'm referring to the fact that you might feel a little bit intimidated by people who maybe are further along than you are, or people you feel like are in the corporate world or busy. You don't want to waste their time. So maybe you don't ask or you don't invite them in. I would just suggest that you try this. Try inviting them into your space as a growing leader. Yes. Like invite. So say to them, you know what? Here's a good example. Before we started today, and I'm not a growing leader, but this is how I roll. Okay, I am a growing leader. Sorry, I shouldn't have said I'm not a growing leader. I'm not at a level of someone who's not led before. But here's how I roll. I had 3 or 4 different shirts, and I asked, which shirt would be best to put on? Like, because we're sitting on a white couch, and I might have my opinion. I'm actually pretty good at that kind of stuff. But the minute you invite people to participate, is my point, you have now a team energy. You have people with ownership. You have people going, we want this to be the best, that it can be. And now it's not just you leading something. It's you inquiring, asking by way of collaboration. By way of collaboration. So you're a communicator, but you don't just get up in front of people with an agenda and then boom, 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 be the boss. You invite collaboration. You invite people to be a part of the project, part of the input. And as you do that, walls come down. And again, the team gets better because you're getting better.
We're talking about the whole team getting better. What have you seen as a pastor over the years when you had a team member no one wanted to work with?
Oh, it's horrible. Because sometimes you like them a lot, and you're like, oh man, it's a friend. It's somebody maybe that watched them grow up or whatever the case may be. I like them a lot, but yeah, it's a bummer. It's a bummer when people are not drawn to them or don't. They come and they try and it doesn't work. And I always think they can be better than they are. And that's my thought is I just wish they would improve themselves. I just wish they would listen, read a book, humble themselves, realize I'm not a very good communicator and I want to be a better one. My attitude about my work isn't really good and I want to improve it.
Yep.
Stuff we talked about, we've talked about today. I've wanted that for people a lot of times because I knew if they could just get better themselves in those areas of leadership, that there was gold in them. There was potential in them. So yeah,
and I asked that because, I know with this conversation and what we're doing all summer is you're just wanting to lead people to a place of greater self-awareness on what the part that they play in lifting the value of the team. Right. And just being extremely self-aware right now.
Right.
When I get better, the team gets better. And we have to come to terms with some of those dynamics.
Yeah, something just flashed through my mind, and I'm going to share it because right now my grandson is playing Little League Baseball, and I go to the games. And, it's that time and that of a kid's life where you've got people of different levels and talent. Mm-hmm. And I know one of the things that my grandson looks forward to is having the more serious opportunities where everybody on the team is really there with putting their best foot forward, and they have developed the skills, of playing the game. But right now it's just not that way. So he's learning patience. He's learning, compassion. He's learning, that's my friend. And, and I still go to their birthday party and love them, and I'm their friend, but they're messing up on the team. They don't know how to catch or throw or hit or whatever it might be. And so it's a good space, but I think that's, when you asked me that question a while ago, I would just say everyone who's listening or watching today, be that person that your team looks at and says they're putting in the work. Yeah. They're putting in the grind. Mm-hmm. I love having them on their team, not because of what necessarily they're the most talented now, but because they're not, they're not playing. They're serious about this. They are investing themselves to be better. That's the key. When you are getting better, your team is getting better, and your team thanks you for it.
Yes.
Your team thanks you for it.
You're reminding me of a leader that I've coached for a while. He's become a friend. I've worked with his team for a long time. This was the year where he finally hit his tipping point, where he finally decided, I don't want to be the one holding the team back anymore. We were on a call. I'll remember it for a long time, where he said, I'm ready. What do I need to do? In his world, I prescribed a program called 75 Hard. I said, why don't you attempt this program? I think it'll really move something in you. And he lost a ton of weight. He looks and feels better than he has in years, but that was the small benefit. The big benefit was his mindset shift and what it did to every aspect of his leadership. And he just got given more responsibility recently because he's shouldering it a little bit better now. And it was really encouraging to see one decision, created new movement. One decision totally changed what he was adding to the team. So I say that just to ask you a final question today. Give us a call to action. I feel like my job sitting on this couch is to try to channel every leader watching or listening today, who would want to be here. Give us a call to action today on how we create some movement in our own lives.
Well, I love that you use that example. We could refer to it as the tipping point. I wish we all knew how to get there, or how to get other people there. There's some mystery in all of that, but I think it begins with this ownership that this person had to make one gigantic decision. And a lot of people would have just said small. Well, I'm calling you to the gigantic in terms of hard, maybe not the easy thing. That's my point. It could be small in a lot of ways, but what's hard? What is it for you that could shift everything? And it could have to do with, your personal habits of, you touched on, it was a program or something, a help, get out and run or eat differently. It probably, that was more of a key than maybe he even realized when he started, right? It changed the way he felt about himself. He felt stronger. He felt more capable. And I like to say this when I'm teaching on the mind. I like to tell people that when a thought comes in your mind that you've rejected, that's a good thought, that you've said, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to start. If you can accept it in 3 to 5 seconds, in 3 to 5 seconds, if you can say yes to that one decision, to that one way of thinking, that will change and it will stimulate your personal growth. It'll change your life and stimulate your personal growth. So I would just ask you today, what is a decision that you can make right now, a personal decision that would stimulate your personal growth? What one decision can you make? Because, and again, a big enough one that you can make. Like, I'm going to eat tacos tonight instead of cheeseburger. I won't have no bread for dinner. No. What's one thing? And we gave you a little list today. But if there could be one thing, like that's what I would just say as an opportunity that we want to present you with today, is that perhaps you've listened to this and you've realized I do care about my church. I love my church. I'm thankful that I have the opportunity to serve God's great church. And maybe you're thinking, and no, I don't want to be that little leaguer that, that never gets better or isn't really interested in the game. I care about my team. I want to help my team. If that's you, then put it all back today. Just receive it here and say, so what is it that I can do? Like now, like immediately, what can I do? In what way can I begin and have a start that will stimulate personal growth in my own life?
That's so good. Thank you, PK, for a great conversation today. This is truly the summer where we don't want to stay where we are. Yep. And we're kind of putting the banner over the summer, I lead forward. This summer, we're leading forward the summer. I'm so glad that you've joined us today. However you're watching this, listening to this, please hit the subscribe button. Plan to join us next month as we continue this conversation over the course of the summer. It would be our honor to have a space in your life every single month. Team Church, we love you. We're standing with you. We're praying for you, whether your church is wide open right now or whether you're still finding your way there. Our seasons are different, but Jesus and his church remain the same, and we love you. We're with you. God bless you. We'll see you next month.
God bless you guys.
This has been the Team Church Podcast with Kevin Gerald. For more information on conferences and events, check out teamchurchconference.com.